Yeah. I was like, it's the South, but it wants to call itself Florida.
Exactly. It's kind of Florida-esque.
Yeah, sort of.
All right, y'all. So live here with me today is Dr. Beau Hightower. He is the head of sports medicine at Jackson Winklejohn, home of, honestly, in my opinion, some of the greatest MMA fighters on the planet. It's a beautiful facility there. You have a huge staff. Just want to say welcome to the show, man.
Well, thanks for having me, man. You know, I'm a big fan of your page. I'm glad you guys are all, subscribing to McDojoLife, and make sure this guy can make more money. Subscribe, share it, tell everybody about it. He's got the best content.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny because I posted this up yesterday. I always do it the day before, like to kind of hype it up or whatever. And as soon as I posted it up, you were the only person I've had on who was somewhat controversial, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that you were a controversial thing. So I'm sure you probably get some shade thrown your way, right? So why do you think people are fucking hating on you so much?
Just, some people have a punchable face, and I just might be one of those. That might be the thing. There's a few things. I mean, for one, I'm friends with John Jones. That's one part. Two, the degrees past that we have. I have a chiropractic degree, I have a naturopathic degree, so those don't fall into the traditional medical paradigm. And so when people see something that's outside of that paradigm, particularly in today's society, they want to lash out, call it bullshit. And you know what? This is America. They're more than welcome to that opinion. So
yeah,
all
and,
great.
it's kind of interesting because you're credentialed out the ass, dude. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure you have 3 bachelor's degrees.
Yep.
And then you have a master's, and I think you were about to get a second master's degree.
Yeah, so I have a master's in exercise science. I'm about 12 hours away from having a master's in neuroscience. And then my doctoral degrees, I do have a doctorate in chiropractic medicine and a doctorate in naturopathic medicine. And so
Okay.
a lot of people don't know what naturopathic is. So the best analogy I'd like to explain it as, it's a similar scope to PT, but we're under the medical board. So the medical doctors are in charge of us in that sense. So I have a medical license. But the real analogy that works best for me is like if you took massage therapists, people that were experts in soft tissue, connective tissue, and then you educated them up to a doctoral level. So at the level of a doctor of physical therapy or someone in that nature. So I have dual licenses. So I'm licensed both by the medical board and the chiropractic board.
So, I mean, once you're licensed by the medical board, doesn't that make you a doctor?
I mean, it doesn't make you a medical doctor. So,
Okay.
the confusion that a lot of people have, and it's, unfortunately, I'm not that big on it. I really don't personally care. You can call me Mr. Beau Hightower, you can call me Brother Beau Hightower, whatever. I'm not that worried about it really. But legally, we're required to put our DN, DC, and doctor credentials on there by the licensing board. So anybody who has a doctoral degree, if you're a clinician in particular, you're actually required to put your DC, DN, or doctor. If you have a PhD, for example, you don't have to, but most people do. If you go to school for 7 years, they're probably going to want to use that credential. So, optometrists aren't medical doctors, podiatrists aren't medical doctors, veterinarians aren't medical doctors, dentists aren't medical doctors, physical therapies aren't medical doctors, chiropractors. They'll have doctoral degrees, so they are called doctor by their patients, but they're not medical doctors.
Okay. But legally, you have to put that.
You have to put either doctor chiropractic, doctor naturopathic, or doctor blah 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 plus the other word. So yeah, you have to reference that word somewhere along the way. You can't just put whatever else on the side. You have to have your license in plain sight, and anytime you represent yourself, you have to use those credentials so as not to confuse the public on if you are a podiatrist or veterinarian or whatever else.
That is really fucking interesting shit right there. I did not know that. I always assumed. Maybe I'm just a dick this way, right? But I always just kind of assumed that doctors just put it out there because it just sounded better. But it makes sense because like every doctor, right, has that written down somewhere. And now it makes complete sense because you legally have to.
Right. And that's when I'm out in public, I mean, like on the introduction yesterday, I don't say I'm Dr. Beau Hightower. My name is Beau Hightower. When I introduce myself to people, call me Beau. I don't wear a white coat because I don't want to create some sort of boundary between healthcare and myself. I'm just a regular dude trying to help people. I mean, we're all healers. So, and it feels weird too. In fact, I don't even like when people call me Dr. Hightower in my office. I'm like, no, please call me Beau. My name is Beau. The only time is like if I'm being introduced for a public speaking engagement or something like that, then that's sort of the expected norm. But otherwise, I mean, it's really irrelevant in the regular world. But if I'm writing a note or something for somebody else or documentation, that has to be on there.
Well, you're obviously not a dumb man. Obviously, you're very, very educated, very
Don't
well
tell
educated.
my fiance that.
Well, I don't know if she'll care what I have to say. So,
Yeah,
but you're obviously working in medicine. No matter what people say, you're obviously working in medicine, sports or
sure.
otherwise, and you're working with some of the best athletes, in my opinion, on the planet.
Yeah.
Not only athletes, but we were talking the other day, and you were telling me that you don't just work with athletes, because I know you as the guy who works on the Jackson Winklejohn fighters, right? John Jones, Diego Sanchez, as your shirt says so.
Yes, sir. Go pick up his products. Diego Sanchez launching his new line, CBD shirts, everything. Help this man. UFC don't give these guys retirement, guys. So if you can help them with their products, that goes a long way to helping fighters, maintain themselves and not have to be fighting into their 50s.
Yeah, exactly. Especially somebody like Diego Sanchez, who is like an old warhorse now. I mean, he's been doing it for a long
He's a
time.
legend, man. He's season 1 Ultimate Fighter, 2005, and
Yes.
he's on a 2-5 winning streak.
Yeah, I know, right? That shit blows my mind. Like, because I guess that's in all of our careers, we have our ups and downs. But as a celebrity personality fighter, your ups and downs are there for everybody to see on display.
Right. They're public.
And Diego, he had a pretty hard down. He had several fight losing streak or whatever. And I was worried that the UFC was going to cut him, and it sucks because at the time that I thought they were going to cut him, he was on a hard losing streak. And the way things are now, there's a lot more free agency, I guess you could say. People can go to Bellator and they can go to one fighting championship and still make a decent living. But then it wasn't like that,
Yeah.
So I'm proud of the dude. I think it's fucking awesome that he's still fighting and winning,
Right. That's crazy. I try to make that point too. Like when I have a bad day at the office, nobody really knows about it, right? Like when you have a bad day at the office, nobody really knows. But when a fighter or a ref or somebody else has a bad day, like the refs, for example, like Herb, recently with the Askren thing, like whether you think that was a good call or not a good call, I don't think it was a good call, but I still think he's a great ref. And everybody wants to roast the guy over the coals and attack him. And like these guys don't make hardly any money, I was a ringside doctor for the UFC Albuquerque card. So I was working with a commission, and like I think I made $600 for like 8 hours worth of work. It's a stressful, and for the legal liability for it too. And then we saw the referee salaries, and they were like 380 or 400. And so, that's not enough to pay the bills, man. You've got to be doing all this other stuff on the side, side hustles, second jobs, doing, referee seminars. It's not like they're making money like UFC executives or fighters. So they're not really, even though they're famous, like it's like the worst possible combination, right? Like you're famous, but you're not rich. Like you'd rather be rich and not famous. So everybody knows them. They see them at the airport, and everybody, of course, attacks them online. Goddard, Herb. The only one that seems sort of exempt from it is John McCarthy, since he's the OG. But like these refs take a beating, man, and they're the best there are, and they're doing the best they can. And these are split-second decisions, and their main goal is to keep the fighters healthy.
Yeah, and I was talking to Mike Beltran about that, man. When I was talking to Mike Beltran, I told him I do not regret. I don't envy your job. You have the job that I would never fucking want, because it's not like you can go, you know what, I fucked that up. Let's just pretend I didn't say that.
Right.
Once they say what they say, it's over. Like if they're like, hey, fight's over. Oh, I fucked up. They can't just be like, yeah, keep going. Like as soon as they make that call, that verbal confirmation that it's done, you have to go. I think in order to get a decision overturned, I think you have to go in front of the state athletic commission. It's like a big deal to get a decision overturned. Because even Herb during that fight, he apologized.
Right. On the after fight.
Yeah, so he admitted he was wrong, and I felt bad for him. And luckily, thank God, the fighter was so cool about it.
Yeah, Robbie's a G, man. If you don't like Robbie Lawler, there's something wrong with you, man. That guy is one of the OGs of the sport, man. Nothing but respect to Robbie Lawler.
Because he was like, hey, it happens.
He's like, shit, it happens. You're a great ref. I love Robbie, man. Robbie's a G.
If you were going to fuck up a call, that's the one dude you want to fuck up a call with.
Right.
Like, it'll be all right.
Well, and you've seen other ones, even like calm dudes that I know, like Jason High, for example. This was actually the Albuquerque card, and I know him now. I treat him now because he came to Jackson's for a while. But before that, he was on that card. He fought Rafael dos Anjos, and he gets up and he pushed the ref, and like he's not that dude, but he has a lot on the line. His money, his career, the trajectory. And he's super chill guy, but the athletic commission came down hard on him. They went at him. So, I mean, it's a really special guy to just kind of take it. I mean, think about all the guys, Roy Nelson kicked John McCarthy in the butt. There's There's been a lot of abuse physically too that the refs have taken. Goddard got attacked by Connor. Um, so those guys, and think about this, like when a fighter does really well, at least they get the accolades. Like a ref is sort of like a pilot, right? Like when you do a great job, nobody fucking pays attention because you're supposed to. But when you mess it up, everybody knows. So like when you land safely, nobody's like, "Hey man, you did a really great job of keeping us all alive." Like they just get off like, "Oh, whatever." But when he
Yeah.
crashes the plane, everybody's like, "Let's hang that guy." And the ref is the same thing. When he makes the right call, it's like good job, fighter. And then when he messes it up, everybody roasts him and piles on.
Um, the thing is like no one seems to remember your successes, but they will fucking rip you apart for your mistakes. Which what I like kind of getting back to this.
Dana does it too.
Every everyone does this. The internet.
Mazzagatti.
Damn you! like like Herb Dean's a great referee. He's made so many good calls for fighters, like allowing them to fight their way through, and he makes one mistake. Like, okay, fuck it. How many thousands of fights has he had to do to get to that one mistake?
Exactly. And with McCarthy doing broadcast, which congratulations, man. I'm glad the guy's finally making some money out of this. Herb's the gold standard right now, honestly.
Well, I mean, I think good for him. Him. There's only like 3 referees that I really think that. Yeah, of course. And I think it's all because they were under John McCarthy, and he had them under their wing, and he taught them how to do it the right way. Because before John McCarthy, you had Pancrase, and then you had Pride, not Pride, because I think Pride was around the same time as UFC or whatever. But like the standard for UFC or for MMA refs, there wasn't a lot of them, so he pretty much wrote the book on how to do it. So I think,
and then you don't really get to know their personalities either, right? Like when the UFC was here, I was with the Athletic Commission, obviously being the ringside doc, but we had the refs with us to the after party, which was like an Athletic Commission after party. And so what's his name? The heart symbol, not Mazzagatti, but Mario Yamasaki.
Yeah.
He's doing shots with us, just like a super chill, cool dude, man. And like I feel like a lot of fans don't get to see that side of a lot of these, secondary personalities, particularly the refs. They don't get a chance because they have to be so professional to like let themselves out a little bit, and they're always on guard because the commissions, may come down on them. And I have a lot of positive things to say about really all of my interactions with all of those guys, man. So I've got nothing but respect for those guys.
Yeah, it's funny because like when you go to if anybody's ever been backstage to an event like that, the State Athletic Commission are usually just kind of getting paid to be dicks. Their job is to be an asshole to everybody who's breaking anything that is resembling breaking a law or a rule, right? So, for instance, something that some people might not know is you can't have alcohol back there.
Right.
You cannot have any booze whatsoever. So I was always under the impression that these guys just didn't drink. But as soon as it's over, it's like they're fucking regular people too, man. They're
regular dudes, man.
And the job is safe, and I respect that.
Right, now, and they need to,
Your job is pretty interesting to me. So, of course, everybody online who's seen you knows you as the guy with the big ass hammer, right? So, because
marketing 101,
you chisel people,
right?
So, I gotta wonder, like, what was the path that you took to get to where you are now? Because obviously you could have a private practice somewhere outside of the fighting community or whatever. You could be doing a lot of things with all the credentials you have. So what kind of led you down the path to where you are now?
Yeah. When I lived in Dallas, I worked for a bigger company and did like a lot of soft tissue work. And I used to work in a medical office, with 4 medical doctors. And back then the TRT exemption was still into play. So a couple fighters that were on TRT at the time were coming there for that. And so the doctors referred those patients over to me, and I started working on them. And then, they started sending me more fighters. And I was able to fix like a lot of crazy injuries that they had that nobody had ever been able to help them with. So, I moved to Ohio. I worked with some guys there. I worked with the Cincinnati Bengals for a while, some of the Dallas Cowboy players. And then I'm from Albuquerque originally. So I moved back here in maybe 2013. And, I started working with a couple of fighters off the bat, Julie Kedzie, Diego Sanchez, Tim Kennedy. And so they started referring more Jackson's guys in, and eventually they sent Greg and Coach Wink in. And, Greg had like bad experiences with a chiropractor previously. It kind of hurt him, and they really had good results. We've been able to save a lot of fighters from pulling out of fights. So when we built the new gym in 2015, they asked me to come on board in that capacity. So, since then I've been able to work with, I think, maybe 12 UFC champions. So even people from outside of this gym, they'll hit me up. I've been able to work with, Derek Lewis, Stylebender, Cody Garbrandt, Michael Bisping, BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, tons of guys, Kung Lee, guys that never trained at Jackson's. And of course, everybody that comes through here, we form a pretty tight bond with. So I keep in touch with those guys when I see them around, the Derek Brunsons, the Cub Swansons, the Alistair Overeems, guys that don't necessarily train here anymore. And even in town, I mean, we have a second location with our practice. So for those that don't know, we have 2 doctors of physical therapy on staff here as well. We have one at another location. We partner with Cowboy Cerrone too, at the Performance Ranch. So we have 2 providers over there. So we still work with even some of those guys that aren't with Jackson Wink as well. We try to stay out of all the drama in that sense. We're just here to help people. We don't want to be involved with that. We just want to make sure people are healthy. And, I don't think we've had an injury pullout in 2 years, maybe. And so for a camp that has had over 100 pro MMA fights, like our resume sort of speaks for itself. And that's really, some of it's from me, but a lot of it's from the coaches doing a really great job of, making sure guys aren't sparring too hard. My massage therapists, our physical therapists, our naturopathic doctors. And we have an orthopod that comes in, once a week too, to help us out with, cortisone injections and medications and things like that. And so working as a cohesive team really allows us to keep everybody in the game. So your favorite fighters can fight, they can make money, and then everybody's generally happy, except for, of course, the trolls online that,
that's
never
what
be happy.
blows my mind is because, like I said at the beginning, like apparently you were a controversial figure. And I think that's because, I think it's because really just, in my opinion, from the conversations, because I'm open to anybody's opinion. I really like hearing of everybody's
Likewise.
side. So I'm talking to the people back and forth on the thread, and they're like, he's not a real doctor. And I'm like, well, I just looked up his credentials, and everything that I'm looking at, I would say he's probably a doctor. Yeah. And they're like, well, that's, it's because of this and that. And they're giving all these reasons and excuses. I'm like, but in my head, I'm going, the proof is in the pudding to me.
Right.
And you can call it whatever the fuck you want. You can call you, like, Dr. Seuss wasn't a fucking doctor, but we call Dr. Seuss doctor all the time. Right. But
yeah, Dr. Dre.
But at the end of the day, it's like, you've worked with the top athletes at what they do. I mean, think about it. In my opinion, John Jones, no matter what his personal things that he has going on in his life, because we have to be respectful of the fact that the dude has no goddamn privacy. So we all make mistakes. The only difference is cameras aren't shoved in our face every time we make a mistake. So he makes mistakes, and that gets put out on a public stage, right? But the fact remains, no matter what you say about his personal life, which is none of our fucking business anyway, he's probably the greatest MMA fighter of all time.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, what he does inside the ring, his generalship, his ring IQ.
Yeah, his fight IQ is astronomical. I've never seen anybody like him. I mean, he's on par with Greg Jackson, really.
Yeah, it's really, really incredible the way that he's able to, and you can see him do it. You can see the wheels coming in the ring. Like, the mistake, I'm going to readjust, regroup, and he fixes it on the fly. Like, under pressure, that's fucking hard. Yeah, especially when one mistake means someone's going to punch you in the face.
Exactly. Exactly.
But you've been able to work with this man.
Sure.
And you've been able to work with Michelle Waterson and Holly Holmes, and you've been able to work with all of these top fighters who have all at one time, I think minus Michelle Waterson, have held, well, no, because I think she was an Invicta champion.
She was the Invicta champ, yeah.
So all of these fighters are title holders. These are world champion athletes, and you're able to help keep them in the game.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine that if you sucked at your job and you weren't good at your job, that the athletes would say so.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would fire me if I wasn't good at my job, right?
You know what I'm saying? It's like, so in my head, I just can't justify the hate. I just can't fucking do it. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the athletes would be like, yeah, this guy sucks. He's a crock or whatever. Really, at the end of the day, you are allowing athletes the opportunity to fight when they may not have been able to fight or risk injury. You're able to help them get past that step. And that's fucking noble as shit to me. That's awesome. You know? Yeah,
and the thing is too, like, we're not some scarcity mindset. If somebody wants to go get a massage or treatment somewhere else, I mean, cool, man, we're just here to help. And, I think a lot of people get caught up on the director of sports medicine title that we have. But if you look at the Olympic team, the director of sports medicine for our U.S. Olympic team is also a chiropractor. Bill Moreau is a friend of mine. And so that doesn't necessarily mean you're treating everything, right? What that means is that they trust you enough to know enough about all the different professions to get the person to the right person. So I'm the first line of defense. So I look at them, I take a look, I evaluate, and I say, I think that you might be a candidate for manipulation, soft tissue work, rehab, whatever it is, or maybe we need to bring, Doc Frosty in to do a cortisone shot, or you know what, this is pretty serious. We need to order an MRI, and we may have to pull you from the fight. But we have to kind of judge that based on each individual fighter, how they respond under adversity. What are the long-term effects? Is it something that maybe they can get through this fight, but it's going to hamper their career? Where's their career trajectory? If they pull out of this fight, is it going to cost them a title fight down the road? So anytime we have something like that, what happens is I sit down with Greg and Wink, and we sit down with a fighter, and we sit down with their manager, and we try to figure out what the exact best thing is. Hopefully what we find is it's something that's maybe a little more minor, and I can fix it right off the bat, and we can maybe hold them out for a day or two of training. We get back in, and we get them to the fight. Or they call me the insurance policy. So one of the cool things about, traveling to the fights is like there's been many times where we probably would have had to lose a main event if I wasn't there, which is kind of cool, but kind of scary too, because it's a lot of pressure to have on you. It's like, shit, man, you better save this fight. So like when John knocked out DC, 2 days before the fight, Mike Benefield, who's his wrestling partner, takes him down. He jams his shoulder up in the socket. The next morning, Coach Izzy calls me in to take a look at him, and John can only raise his arm to about right there, his left arm, which is his dominant hand. And this is Thursday before the fight. He's got to weigh in the next day. So we're working on it. We work on him then. I cut weight with him. So we're in the sauna. He's mineral oiling because he's still got to make weight. We're getting that shoulder back to normal. And, I think that was the left hand that he ended up finishing the fight with. Any other time he would have had to pull out of that fight. So, if we can be there and we can get in the athlete's corner, we can do things to help them accomplish their goals. Not only is the fighter going to be happy because he's going to make $500,000, but the fans are going to be pretty happy because they're not having to, buy a pay-per-view that they're pissed about now, or, we've had a lot of those lately, right? The morning of the fight where fighters are pulling out with injuries or with other issues. And, knock on wood, it hasn't happened yet. It probably will numerically at some point. But in, 5 years of working on these fights, I haven't had a fighter pull out during fight week.
That's a pretty damn good track record, my friend. That's pretty good.
Like I said, some of that may be due to chance. Some of it may be due to, great genetics from the fighters. And probably a small part of that is us. But, as long as I can be a part of that, that's a really cool thing to me.
Yeah. And, allowing fighters to have an insurance policy like you were saying you are, is a huge thing because a lot of fighters don't get that opportunity with a lot of other camps. They would have to pay out of pocket really heavily so to go find and search for someone who does what you do.
Sure.
Make sure that gets taken care of. Whereas you're right there to already help. And you already have a track record of seeing fighters and working with fighters. So you already probably have a good index, I would imagine, in your mind of what the issues may already be because it's not new to you.
Sure.
That's what you do.
I played college football at a D1 level. I wrestled for 16 years or so. And now I've been around fighters for a decade. So I know their injuries. I know the types of injuries they have when they tear cartilage and what the prognosis is and all those. When you tear cartilage, I know how long they're going to be out for. I know how soon to a fight that they can deal with it. Unfortunately, some of the medical doctors that not necessarily we refer to, but maybe the UFC refers them to, aren't very familiar with fighting. I mean, we had Michelle Waterston, for example. They referred her to a hand surgeon that isn't the one that we use. And, he was asking her, it's like, what else do you do? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And she's too nice to say anything to the guy, right? This is a professional athlete. What are you talking about? So he's like, just let it heal. I said, Michelle, go back and talk to him. You need to put a plate in your hand. If you don't, you will re-break your hand. And he kind of bullied her into not having surgery on it. So here I am proposing for surgery, and then the surgeon doesn't want to do it. So then, lo and behold, first time she gets back in camp, she throws the punch and breaks the hand again. So then, the UFC tries to send her back. I kind of vetoed that. I said, we're going to see this hand surgeon because I know him. I know he knows fighters, and we got him in there. And so basically what happens is they ended up putting the plate in, and that's what she needed. But, they don't know fighting, and they're like, oh, here's a female. I said, no. This is a professional athlete. This is how this woman makes a living. She is the highest level in the world. Don't try to downgrade what she does. And just because you don't know fighting doesn't mean that you need to, take money out of her pocket, cost her a year in time and things like that. And so, when we can kind of get people where they need to go, they develop a strong sense of trust in us. And we're here to be honest, 100%. If I think I can help you and I can, we're going to do it. If I don't, we're going to get you to the surgeon or whoever else we need to get you to. And I think the ego for a lot of other professionals is not necessarily that way. They think if they can't fix it, then they must need to pull them from a fight. And I just don't think in that sense. We think in terms of a team unity. Everybody has a specialty. Everybody does certain things really well. Our physical therapists here, Dr. Shar and Dr. Gumero, they're really, really amazing at dry needling. So if I think somebody needs dry needling, that's where they're going to go to. We have a doc that does Prola. We have a doc that does stem cell injections. We have a network. Those other MDs just aren't in office because they wouldn't be able to make a living being here.
Yeah. And what I found fascinating is when I first got to Jackson Winklejohn, I walked in, nobody knew who the fuck I was. I just walked in, they were like, yeah, you can't go back there. And so I was allowed to go upstairs. In case you've never been to Jackson Winklejohn, when you first walk in, of course, it's wall to wall, posters, pictures, magazine covers all over the place, fighters right on the walls, I guess, before they leave or before matches and stuff. I mean, there's a beautiful experience to go. And I walked through the door and, it's pretty empty. The manager's front room desk is like right there. His office is right there when you walk in. And I think he's Russian or Bosnian.
Yeah, Russian.
Yeah, so I walk in and he was just basically like, he doesn't even look up from the desk. He's like, you can't go back there, just go upstairs, right? I was like, all right, cool. So I go upstairs and I'm sitting down and I was watching Holly Holmes and Michelle Watterson training. They were getting ready for, I guess they were both getting ready for fights at the time, if I remember. So they were getting ready or whatever. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then the janitor, y'all's like superintendent of the building, like the head of that, he was like, oh my God, I recognize you. He's like, give you a tour. I was like, this is fucking awesome. So he gives me the tour of the upstairs dormitories, and which is also an experience that I will never forget, is because when you walk back there, there's fighters posters, and then the fighters have signed the wall, not the poster, but the wall. Yeah. And so it's a euphoric experience. You go all the way through, but then he was like, let me show you the rest. And then he takes me back to y'all's area. And I walk back there, you guys have just as much space allocated, if not more, to you as the fighters. I mean, it's a team. Like there's like door after door after door of like MD, doctor, like so-and-so and so-and-so, and they all had their own little area. And when I walked in there, I guess there was like, what I can tell was almost like a common room area for the doctors to be in. And so there's a couple desks and stuff. And I walked back there and there's like 7 or 8 athletes getting looked at and worked on. And I mean, professional as shit, and you can tell that it's a team mentality there from the time you walk in. For the fighters, the coaches, and the doctors all work together as a unit. And I think that's where the real success comes from, is the fact that everybody's fucking cool. They work together.
Like most of that stuff, like a lot of people probably don't even realize this, but like I don't make $1 off of the fighters. So that's part of our negotiation for our release here too. They give me a heavy discount in order to take care of the guys. And then the high level guys are kind of at a different level as well. But like what we tried to do here is we tried to create an environment that sort of looked like an NCAA training room. So, whatever equipment that fighters from all over the world like or want to use, we try to get that. So we've got traction machines, we've got the Normatec boots, we've got cold laser, we've got ultrasound, we've got E-stim, we have every type of roller you can think of. We have, reverse hyper machines. We have, all kinds of strengthening devices as well. And then, we try to have all kinds of different types of providers. So that way, especially if a fighter, say they're from France and they have a DO that they like to see and they know what treatment works for them, well, we're going to go and start off by giving them the treatment that works for them. So if I have a fighter, for example, that comes in that's like, hey, man, I don't like to get cracked. Well, guess what? We're not going to go ahead and try that. We're going to say what usually works for you. So let's do soft tissue work. Let's do mobility work. If you need to get, stretched out, we can do that too. So, we try to build those relationships. We give people what they're willing to do. And like that's a big component of evidence-based medicine that I think people forget about. Like when you look at that triad, there's 3 components to it. One is the literature, which is important. I always like to use that as like an analogy, is like if you're driving down the road, the literature, the research are the guardrails. So those are what keeps you from going off the edge. But that doesn't control what lane you drive in. Are you in the fast lane, the middle, or are you in the slow lane? So the clinical expertise, meaning that the clinician who has seen so many different cases and is familiar with MMA injuries or whatever, that is one of the indicators of the lane. And the other one that's a third of patient care is what is the patient willing to do? What are they going to commit to? If I give them a strengthening program, but they don't see the value in it, what's the point? If I try to do some sort of intervention that they know doesn't work well for them, well, I don't think I'm God's gift to any sort of intervention. So I'm not going to force some intervention that they know doesn't work well for them. We're going to give them what they believe that it needs until we get to some point where I'm like, hey, man, listen, I know you want to make this fight, but if you don't get a stem cell injection in your knee, you're not going to be able to get there. So there's a balance, and that's where you need to find that sweet spot as far as like what the athlete needs, and then finding out where they are in camp. Like we try not to do a lot of soft tissue work the week of a fight because they're dehydrating. we don't want to adjust them within 72 hours of a fight, because we don't want their brain to not know where they are in space. We don't want to try anything new during fight week. So, I'll have fighters like Stylebender or even Paul Felder. Like, I'll be at the fight week and they'll come in, they're like, "Hey, could you crack my neck?" I'm like, have you had it done before a fight? They said no. I said, "No, we're not going to do it then." We don't want to try something brand new right now. I'm concerned about your career, and I don't want something to go wrong just because you wanted to try something brand new. So we said, no. What have you done previously during fight week that did well? Well, I did PNF stretching. So, okay, we'll do that. We'll start there. And then if you catch me at a fight and you're the guest fighter and you want to try that and see how it does, then I'm open to that.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that instead of looking out for your best interest, which unfortunately so many coaches and trainers are doing, the big thing for us is I'm not financially tied to them, so it doesn't matter what they think of me. They can fire me at any time, whatever else. I'm not on the payroll in that sense, so I don't need to kiss ass. I don't need to jockey for position. I'm just here to be real with them, be their friend, and be in their corner. So that's a huge component, and just be somebody that they can rely on for real advice, and not be worried about getting fired or whatever else. Because if they fire me, whatever,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm losing money out of it.
And obviously, you're put in a very unique position because I have to say, obviously, there are several, if not hundreds, if not thousands of doctors who work in sports medicine. Obviously,
Sure.
there are NFL doctors who their only job is to work on NFL guys, right? And I'm sure there are personalities and celebrity in that. The same thing in NFL or NBA and baseball and all kinds of things. But for you to be, to me, a figurehead in sports medicine, for fighters. And I can't name another doctor who works with MMA fighters. I can't. And I think it's because you're put in a position that's so unique to be in that training camp and to work with the highest level athletes there are. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to draw other people to you. And you were telling me about this before. Like, you were telling me you don't just work on athletes. So who are some of the other people that you've worked on?
Sure. Well, before we do that, so if you don't know any, let me name drop some great docs out there for you guys. So OC Fight Docs, Dr. Kessler out in Orange County, he's a great chiropractor. They've got all kinds of physical therapy, soft tissue work in there. So if you're in SoCal, give them a shot. Dr. Mora is an orthopedic surgeon in Southern California. He works with a lot of fighters, great doc. Dr. Heather Linden over at the UFCPI, she's a great physical therapist. Dr. Bruno down in Southern Florida, he's a Brazilian guy. He's a really good sports chiropractor. So there are some really great guys out there that work with fighters. So, there are people, if you guys aren't following them, make sure to do that and, give credence where credence is due. So other people we work with, I mean, first of all, 99% of our population are just regular people from the city. So, fighters are about 1% of who we see on a day-to-day basis. Like my clinic, we saw 85 people today. I saw 14. I saw a pro basketball player today, no fighters today. We don't have a lot of people in camp right now.
Loaded the office.
Yeah. I mean, I saw, Ray Borg's fighting next week. Some other guys are in town. People like that. But musically, when guys come into town, they reach out to us. So if you guys are rockers, Marilyn Manson is somebody that's reached out. I got to go treat him on his tour bus and kind of go to the after party, which was a little bit wild. You can imagine how that went. So when in Rome, Maynard Keenan James from A Perfect Circle and from Tool is a guy that's been through. Who else? Of Mice and Men, that band. They're kind of an alt rock band. We deal with them. Actors, quite a few. Bob Odenkirk, if you guys are familiar with Better Call Saul, he's a guy that comes through. Jeremy Piven from Entourage, Ari Gold, that's a buddy of ours. Wolfmate, the radio guy. Who else? Kenyon Barner's an NFL player. He was with the Chargers and, he tore his hamstring and nobody there could help him. So he was flying, every other week out to Albuquerque to come see us. Because we were giving him the right treatment. We were doing the, some stimulated dry needling in the right areas that got him back in the game because he was basically going to get cut otherwise. And you would think in Southern California, the Chargers would have the access to resources, but, for whatever reason, maybe their doctors weren't familiar with the injury. And again, it's no knock on them, but, we have the trust of our athletes that have worked with us before. Scott Bamforth he's a European NBA player. He's only here for a week and he came in 2 sessions. We get guys that fly in from Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all over the world. So, we're blessed, this little, place in the desert,
Yeah, it's funny. Like that you say the place in the desert thing is because because I'm from Florida,
right?
From Jacksonville specifically. So when you're on the highway, that's how you can usually judge what type of city you're in is from the highway view.
Sure.
When you're on the highway in Jacksonville, you get to see the highway. There's the highway and there's trees, and that's fucking it. Every once in a while, you'll see like a wall of concrete. When you're in Albuquerque, you're in a dome, like a bowl.
Yeah.
So from the highway, you can see the entire city from the highway because it's in a bowl. And it really is. It's just dirt.
Right. It's dirt. There's a big rock over there. It's a mountain, and you can see the end of town right there. So, it's kind of wild. I mean, one of my therapists, he moved here from Boca. And, and our physical therapists, they come from all over the world. Like Dr. Gamero came here from NYU, from New York, to come work with us, because he saw the work we were doing. He saw the work of fighters. NYU is a prestigious physical therapy program, and he's down here from there. Greg is from Boca, and he came out here, and he was like, wow, like I didn't realize how many like high-level fighters, have come through this place. And, it's kind of a weird little place. And there's a lot of movies that are filmed here too. So for being, 20 miles or 20 hours from civilization in every direction, like we're blessed to be able to work with such high level people, given our current situation.
Yeah, definitely.
We're not in Miami, we're not in LA or,
Yeah, it's a really neat thing because out in Albuquerque, there's only a few things you can really do. Yeah. One is martial arts, because you guys have an incredible martial arts network out there, I have to say, because you guys, Jackson Winklejohn is almost like in a partnership with Gracie Baja. And so the Gracie Baja guys will go over to Jackson Winklejohn and work with the jiu-jitsu for those guys, for the fighters. And then, of course, the fighters from Greg Jackson's camp, Jackson Wink, will go over to work with Gracie Baja guys. And so whenever you're dealing, even just with basic level people, like we're talking white belt, blue belt level jiu-jitsu guys, they're fucking incredible because they've been rolling with the best in the world. And the only thing you can really do there, I have to say, your food was great too. The food, your fighters.
That's our saving grace, because other than that, we have methamphetamine and poverty.
And of course, the poverty is also high up there. I didn't know this, but every time I go to a new city, I always talk to the Uber driver, and the first thing I say to the Uber driver is, "Hey, man, what's there to do around here?" The two Uber drivers, by the way, told me the same thing. They started off the conversation with, "Don't go past this street past this hour, and don't go past this street past this hour." Oh, the Mecca, man, the Mecca.
Giving you guys a quick little overview of the office, and the views out here. So there's Bavon Lewis. If you guys are familiar with him, he's gonna be a star. He was the one that just lost to Uriah Hall, but was putting it on him.
Oh man, and I don't know if they can see. Like, stay right there for me. Put it back on out there. So right across the way, right above the ring on the wall, and you might not be able to make it out, but each one of those things is a poster with a fucking champion on it. I mean, Tim Kennedy, John Jones, Michelle Waterson, Holly Holmes, they're all on photos, like giant posters on their wall. That's respect right there.
Yeah. So, sparring sessions in here are wild, man. Like, and, we'll get guest fighters that come down, Rose Namajunas, Anthony Pettis, all those guys will come down too. So, like, you never know what day. I mean, there's days where you used to have, I guess, with Cowboy Cerrone, you'd have Cowboy sparring Anthony Pettis, or just these crazy, matchups. Overeem and Frank Mir, or, stuff like that, but literally like pay-per-views in the works. And you're like, wow, I didn't think I'd ever see that,
Yeah, because of course, like when you're sparring, it's not a weight class thing either. So you don't have to like pick and choose who gets to work with you.
Like one of the coolest ones I always liked to watch was John Dodson and Cub Swanson. John's so fast and Cub Swanson's got really fast hands. And it's crazy. And then Ray Borg and John Dodson, I mean, that looks like a Dragon Ball Z fight. They're like teleporting all over the place because they're so fast, man.
Yeah, that would be
10 times 20,
Yeah, I'm like jealous of that, because that view from that window, I'm sure, has seen some amazing things. Like even, I have to say this as well. It's very interesting because when I got there and finally everybody knew who I was and I was cool and I was free roaming the facility, I sat down in the chair. And behind me was a private lesson going on, and it was Wink and one of your up-and-comer heavyweight guys. And he's doing a private lesson, and it's a art. The way that he talks to his fighters is so different than I've seen so many other coaches. I think that's another piece of magic too. It's very difficult to even explain, because when he's talking to the fighter and he's talking him through combinations and stuff, and he's working them through how he wants them to hit the pads and how he wants them to move, like it's almost like a symbiosis. It's almost like he absorbs what he knows his fighter can do, and he encourages that good. And he also like gives, now he doesn't seem to even just say, "Don't do that." He says, "Hey, here's an idea, here's a suggestion. And it's like the most polite coach I've ever seen in my fucking life. It's the coolest shit ever.
Yeah. It's all about respect, right? Like, think about, and I think having been previously athletes, a lot of these guys, Coach Wink was like, I don't know how many times an American kickboxing champion. So how to talk to people because you don't want to be talked to that way, and I'm the same way with my employees and everybody else. It's like, that's really great. I like the idea behind that, but here might be a better way to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm going to start wrapping it up here a little bit because we've been going on for like 50 minutes. Time flies, dude.
Time flies.
It really does. But I always try to lead in with a few questions that are pretty much similar to everybody else, just because they are what fascinate me. So I don't give a shit if anybody else likes the question. Like, I do all my interviews for my own entertainment. Like, if other people
let them know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, fuck
let them know. McDojoLife letting you know.
For sure.
To this day.
All day, every day. But one thing, I grew up in martial arts. Like, it's been 22 years in April. It's all I've ever done. I've been through the gambit. I've done the full contact scene. I've done the sport karate scene. I've been able to learn from a lot of fighters. I've had my ass beat up and down gyms and rings, and I love every second of it. And one of my favorite things about martial arts, and you have a different perspective, especially because of that damn window, is stories from the dojo. Now, I enjoy a story that happens inside the dojo that no one else would ever know about. But if you're inside a dojo, you know that these things happen. Now, you happen to be in one of the biggest dojos in the fucking world. So, and I know for a fact that your homeless crazy population is up there. So I'm curious if you have any stories of anything that may have happened either inside your office or inside the gym that you're like, man, this is great. This is this is an exclamation point on my day. Maybe you have something like that.
I mean, there's a bunch of them, man. Like, if you're people that are familiar with Albuquerque, like Jackson Wink is downtown Albuquerque, so we're right by a hospital. So when they pick up homeless people that are doing drugs, meth, heroin, or whatever, they let them out and they walk right by the gym. So they know what MMA is, and so there are some times when they try to basically they sneak in and they'll be wearing like tap out shorts and they try to go get on the mats. So I think Cowboy actually told part of one of these stories. So this guy comes in and he's got MMA gloves on. So I don't know where he got them from. And, sparring's wrapping up. Diego's getting ready for a fight. And this dude walks up and he's just like tweaked out. He's staring at him and he's like, I got next. And Diego just kind of was like, whatever, man. Like, I don't know you. Because there's so many international fighters. Sometimes you don't know who's a new guy or whatever. Like maybe this guy is just Russian and he's awkward and doesn't know how to communicate. He's like, I'm next. And he's like, bro, I'm getting ready for a fight. I don't want to spar. He's like, somebody fucking fight me. And so that, Coach Wink comes over. He's like, hey, man, this is my ability. Can you leave? And he's like, no, I'm fighting somebody here. So they're trying to get him to go. And then Coach Wink starts, he's getting mad. He's like, all right, some shit's going to go down. So if you guys know who Frank Lester is, he was on Tough. He comes over, comes up to the dude. He's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. And so he turns around and Diego all of a sudden loses it. He jumps on his back, sinks in an RNC. But this dude is like methed out, like PCP'd out. He ends up getting out of it and throws it off. And he starts moving to the side. Frank cuts him off, head kicks him, like lands shin straight to dome. Dude just eats it. And he's still coming forward. I'm like, what is happening? So like 4 dudes end up having to like pick him up and like carry him out and throw him out on the street. So that was one of those incidents. And then there was another one, like, maybe a month later, some dude decided that he needed to fight Coach Wink. And he was like upstairs, homeless guy, like banging on his door. And like, we had to throw him out. And then what's another good one? Those are some of the craziest ones. Oh man. And then I have a crazy stalker that like leaves notes in the he found me on YouTube or something, and he leaves these crazy notes saying that I'm like hacking into his headphones, and we try to get a restraining order on him, but pretty much every day he drives by and throws like 10 notes out the window. And he talks about how like I'm using the YouTube algorithm to, feed him videos, and I'm the avatar for Beyonce and he's the avatar for Ariana Grande. And so by playing the song Nothing, I'm insinuating that somehow I'm going to kill him someday.
Jesus Christ,
so
man.
It's never a dull moment. So luckily, hey, this is an open carry state, Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we are always strapped out here, man.
Dude, I would suggest so with some crazy shit. Now I get death threats, but goddamn, I have not had anything weird like that. I do have right? He is a little odd, and he sends me this like overly religious shit like constantly, and he tries to talk to me as if the end of the world is happening. And like, I just kind of let it ride, but like every month or so, it just gets a little weirder. Like it notches up. Like there are people out there who will wear your skin as a mask. I'm just letting you know they're out there.
They will turn your genitals into a wind chime.
Yes, it will be like one of those man bun purses. Like
lock you down, puts the lotion on its skin.
Puts the lotion in the basket. Like,
okay, sorry. Fine, I'll crack your back, man. Whatever I got to do to get out of this. Got some crack? Got a crack?
So I am curious about that as well. That was my other question is I'm not medically trained in any way, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at, but your videos online are incredible. And if anybody's out there and whenever you see this, because everybody always watches my shit after the fact. No one ever goes live. You know, all these people who were talking shit yesterday about like you, I was like, you should come on and ask a question. That's how this is a forum. It's an open forum, right? None of them fucking came on to ask a goddamn question. It was like they were so adamant. But then when it comes to like back it up, like it's almost like they're worried that someone's going to prove them wrong. It's like that's the whole open forum conversation, you know. But in any case, I digress.
That actually happened on the Reddit that I did too. I did the AMA Reddit, and like a very similar thing happened. They posted that it was going to happen. The same kind of dudes came on, like, no, that guy is selling snake oil or something. And it's like, well, first of all, like, name one claim that I've ever made that is ludicrous. I'm not saying that I can fix your liver or something. People come in and they say, I have pain. So we do an intervention, and then I'm like, do you still have pain? And if they say no, then I'm going to take them at their word. So the idea that is somehow snake oil are making some sort of weird claims, either they're better or they're not. This is sort of binary logic. If they're not, then we're going to refer you somewhere else. So wherever that comes from. But this happened on the Reddit too. So I was sitting there on my AMA, you know, my Twitter fingers ready to roll, and like nobody showed up to go with me, and I was ready for a fight, man. And it's just, it's the same old thing. It's the same people that, you know, criticize fighters' techniques. Like, bro, you got to keep your right hand up more. Like, oh, thanks, Fat Steve. I'm glad you, you know, you have all that to say with, right? It's like, Jesus Christ. But Joe Rogan said, I'm like, listen, I like Joe, you know, whatever. He can have his opinion. We can differ on opinions. This is America, right? Adults have differing opinions. That's fine. But people take what other people say and they like take some sort of religiosity or add it onto that. And it's like, bro, like, you know that nobody has a monopoly on the truth, right? Like everybody lives in their own reality. And so you might believe that's true. You like somebody might think that, I don't know, Jose Aldo's the GOAT or something like that. Yeah. You know, of course, I know that Artem Lobov is the GOAT, but, you know, I digress.
Say it ain't so, man. Say it ain't so.
He's the type of guy, you know.
But anyway, I'm going to skip over that. So, but I mean, you got to give the guy credit at least. Like, you know, he's now at bare knuckle. So I
love Artem. I just think it's a hilarious, like, online meme that just goes and goes and goes, you know. It's like every time I'm like, yo, who's the GOAT at heavyweight? And everybody's like, Artem Lobov. I'm like, yeah, you're right, actually.
You win. You win the debate.
You win. Yeah, so, fuck yeah.
Get the GOAT tattoo with his face on it.
Might as well. Choo-choo, motherfuckers.
But I'm sorry, it took me a long time to get to this question, but so I don't exactly understand in your videos, because most of your videos do have you with the chisel and hammer. Some of your videos also require you like pinching very specific things, like under the arm. I've seen that, or pinching like up here in the trap area, it seems, and like you're having them move and manipulate. Maybe you can kind of help me understand what the chisel and that is for, because I don't understand it.
Okay, so like
pain though, a lot of pain.
Yeah, so soft tissue work, like if you're anybody's familiar with like active release technique or, you know, fascial distortion model, like when a muscle or connective tissue is very tight or whatever, what we're doing there is pinning and stretching it. So like if my lat is too tight, so say I'm trying to raise my arm, right? Well, the lat is going to be the muscle that pulls my arm down. The deltoid is the one that raises it up. So if my lat is too tight, then my deltoid won't be able to overcome that moment arm, and I won't be able to raise my arm up as high. So if we can loosen up that lat or get that lat longer, now all of a sudden, relatively, my deltoid is relatively stronger, which now allows me to raise my arm better. So when you see those kind of things, basically it's like a sped up massage. So instead of spending an hour, you know, softly working on that muscle, we're in there in 5 minutes, we break that tissue up, we get them moving, and we get them back out there. So as a consequence of that tends to be sort of painful. But that's what high-level athletes get done. That's what Olympic athletes get done. That's what NFL athletes get done. Now, when it comes to the chisel, you know, that's not necessarily even my idea. Like, it comes from Asian cultures, Toksec, and then there's even a medical doctor out of where's he out of? Amsterdam, I believe, who has kind of, been one of the front runners on this type of medical modality as well. And it makes sense. So like if you want a bone to move a certain way, we know the shoulder can come forward, we know the shoulder can come back. There are such things as dislocations, and there's medical subluxations too, which I think MMA Blasted talked about, and I agree with him. Like I'm not a personal believer in like chiropractic subluxations or nerves being pinched in that way, but bones certainly do and can move out of place. So if your humerus is too far forward or it's jammed upward, like the only way to really create any space out of there, it's not by cracking it. Like we need a very direct linear way to move that bone into a more optimal position, and that allows the muscles to fire from where they need to go to. So when you see the hammer and the chisel, the vast majority of the time, that's what we're doing. We're trying to get a rib to move forward relative to the scapula or the shoulder blade. We're trying to get the humerus to move backwards, or we're trying to move the heel bone maybe more laterally if they've already sprained their ankle. That way they're in a more optimal biomechanical position.
Yeah, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you say these sessions really hurt?
It depends. It really depends. Like we have a lot of middle-aged women that think it feels good. They're in so much chronic pain that anything that feels different than that is relieving. I had a lady that flew in from Indiana today. She was like, "This feels so good." Yeah. If you're a high-level athlete that's muscles are bound up and wired tight, like the worst are bodybuilders. They really struggle with this. Yeah. It depends on the body part. I mean, it could be an 8 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah. The video with Diego Sanchez, I know it looks so fucking painful. I feel bad for the guy, but it's funny how he reacts to it, because I guess it's like a nervous tick where as soon as like you start applying that pain, he just, whoops, we kind of like lost you there for a second. You still there, brother? Oh, maybe not. That was weird. Anyway, strange. Let me see. Very strange. He just the thing kind of like dipped out there for a second. You still there, homie? Still there? Maybe not. Damn. There we go. Hold on. All right. Getting him back so I can ask his last thing. Hey, weird.
Yeah, Diego's Diego. So, he's out there in the rain, doing backflips and screaming yes and lightning. And so that's just his way to channel pain. Like he embraces it, he absorbs it. And then as the muscles release, then he calms down. And, like other guys, I think I worked at Alistair Overeem fell asleep with me working on him one time, which I'm like, whoa, your pain tolerance is really high. And everybody else sort of has different levels. Like I remember one of the first times I worked on Holly, she was crying the whole session. But she's just a crier. She cries in training. That's who she is. And then she was like, I was like, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "It's just that time of the month. Keep going." Because Holly has like the highest pain tolerance in the world.
Yeah.
But here's this woman that could probably beat the shit out of me, crying that I'm hurting. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to catch a head kick here, aren't I?
Other people have.
Right. She's going to turn me into Sloth from the Goonies with that
head kick. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But hey, dude, I'm gonna let you go. We've been on here for like a solid hour, so I could honestly, I'm just very fascinated. I think that you have a amazing personality. I think you're a great dude.
You too, man.
Very direct, and I appreciate you also attacking what we talked about before, like about the haters and stuff like that. You aren't afraid to address it. I think that's very noble. I think that the fact that they didn't show up to ask any questions at all speaks loads, and the fact that you're willing to come on and discuss it, like you're willing to go toe to toe, you don't mind that, which is amazing to me, and that alone shows just about as much legitimacy as anything else. And I think the biggest thing that we can ever do to make ourselves legitimate, obviously that's my goal in the martial arts, is to keep things legit, is transparent. Just be transparent. And I think that you've offered nothing but transparency. You've hid absolutely nothing. You've answered every question. So anybody out there who thinks this dude isn't legit, fuck you. Fuck you in the ass.
Damn, you didn't show up. He just roasted y'all.
You didn't show up. You didn't ask any fucking questions. You said nothing to this man. He's willing to discuss this with you, and you're going to sit there and talk shit online, but you're not going to at least address the man. Even online, you can still hide. You're not even going to drop a fucking question right there in the comments section. Bitch, fuck you. Obviously, you have nothing to add to the conversation, and you just want to be trolls, and you just want to hate on somebody who's very successful and works with people who are at a high level. And you know what? to me, 100% legitimate. You've hid nothing. So, I mean, I don't know what my seal of approval means on the end of anything. I really don't at this point. I have no fucking idea why anybody even listens to me. But
fuck it, I'll take it. Give me a McDojo seal of approval. Boom. Put it on the board.
Yeah, I'll stamp that shit on anything, man. But the truth is like, out of all the evidence and everything we've spoken
triple stamp
about,
a double stamp.
you get 2 stamps.
2 stamps.
But you know, like
triple stamp a double stamp.
But I just think it's fucked up. My mind is a little blown right now because out of all the shit talk, all that shit talk, and no one, not one. I have 300,000 people who follow all my social medias, and out of all those 300,000 people, all that little quips and all the little fucking hate and all the shade, none of them showed up to say anything. So that goes to show you that all of them are little bitches. And yeah, I'm going to go on my fucking Instagram and I'm going to fucking start going back through my newsfeed and I'm going to call every one of them little bitches for not showing up and saying what they were saying. You know, because that's what my job is, I feel. My job is to help keep things as legitimate as possible. It wasn't a job that I necessarily thought was going to happen, but that's where I am now. Sure. So fuck them. I think it's ridiculous. And I think that it's just slanderous at this point for anybody to talk shit. And I say, thank you for showing up. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. And fuck them. Fuck them.
Yeah.
But
they're cool. I mean, this is America, bro. Like, they can say what they want, dude. It's all good. But McDojoLife, if you guys aren't, you know, make sure you get out there and support this dude's channel, you know. And McDojo, you're always welcome down here anytime you want to, my man.
Of course, dude. I can't wait to get back over there. I know I got to work with Master Ken again eventually.
Yeah.
And then
so I'll do a triple collab or something, man.
Yeah, dude. How about you just adjust my shit? Like,
we'll do it. And then Master Ken will stomp my groin and we'll just go in a big circle. It'll be good. Re-stomp the groin. It'll
just be a lot of pain going around.
Fuck it. You know, you only live once, right?
Yes, dude. Hey, thank you so much again. I appreciate you taking the time. And real fast before we go, plug yourself real fast. Where can people find you?
Yeah, go subscribe to the YouTube channel because you guys are going to give me some money, which I like that. Money's very nice. So the YouTube channel, you just look up my name, Dr. Beau Hightower. You'll find it. Instagram too, my Facebook. I think I'm on Facebook, but my old account was banned, so don't even worry about that.
Gotta love it, man. All right, dude.
Well, I'll let you go.
Yeah. Thank you once more. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the weekend. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Later, y'all.